Well, the conservative movement started really in the post-Second World War II period, although there were early examples of conservative activity in the 1920s and 1930s. But you need to remember that Hollywood is and was and always is about making money. So the early studios were primarily concerned with getting established, making a lot of money. But in the 1930s, when the Great Depression came, we see in California in particular a resurgence of Democrats, and in 1934 a socialist and well-known author, Upton Sinclair, was able to win the governor's nomination, or the nomination for governor for the Democratic Party. And the studios, Hollywood studios, went really berserk with the idea of socialists coming into office. And for one thing, Sinclair was talking about nationalizing the film industry. So the studios, people such as Louis B. Mayer and the Warner Brothers and others, poured money into an anti-Sinclair campaign. And they were able to defeat him in 1934. So that's the beginnings of conservatism and Republican activity. But by the time of the in the post-Second World War II period, the Republican Party was really in complete disarray, factionalized, and so what I explain and explore in my book, When Hollywood Was Right, is how a small group of movie stars, studio moguls, and California businessmen got together and rebuilt the Republican Party, ultimately electing Ronald Reagan as governor and as president in 1980. It was an informal alliance. The movie stars such as John Wayne, Robert Montgomery, Robert Taylor, Barbara Stanwyck. Many of these names are not known by your younger viewers. Walt Disney, who is well known for his cartoons in Disney Studios. And then a group of businessmen, people like Justin Dart, who was founder of Rexall Drugs, Walter Knox, who's established Knox Berry Farm, people like Leonard Firestone, the heir to the Firestone family. And they came in, they decided to rebuild the Republican Party. Democratic registration in California had far surpassed the Republican Party. And at the same time, the Republicans were very, very factionalized throughout the 1950s and the 1960s. So in rebuilding the party, it meant putting money into the party, into political campaigns, but it also meant taking these well-known stars and sending them out to speak to civic clubs and fraternal organization, Republican clubs throughout Southern California. So Robert Taylor, for instance, who was a big star in the day, was sent out to places like Fontana and Riverside. And people like Ginger Rogers was another Republican who was sent out to speak to civic groups. Well, primarily what brought them together is they were Republicans concerned with big government, especially the expansion of big government during Roosevelt's New Deal in the 1930s. And so they wanted to scale back government. They wanted what Republicans always want, fewer taxes. But at the same time, they were also interested in boosting the economy, making the state of California a good place to bring business. So they were concerned with labor issues, especially the role of labor in the Democratic Party. But while they wanted small government, they also wanted defense contracts. So they used Republicans such as former actor and dance man George Murphy, who was at the tail end of his career. They used him as a lobbyist to talk to Vice President Richard Nixon, who was then Vice President of Dwight D. Eisenhower, to make sure that the Eisenhower administration was sending defense contracts. The Republicans were quite successful, but it's in California. If you look at the very end, that is 1980 when they elect Ronald Reagan. In other words, one of the actors who was involved in this campaign to revitalize the Republican Party. But this ultimate success shouldn't belie the fact that they had their ups and downs. There was infighting over candidates. In '52, some of the Hollywood moguls, such as Louis B. Mayer and Ginger Rogers and others, wanted a man by the name of Taft to win the nomination. They didn't like Eisenhower. And then in 1964, when Barry Goldwater, the senator from Arizona, ran in the primaries, actually some of the Republicans, such as Justin Dart and Leonard Firestone, supported Nelson Rockefeller, who was seen as the Eastern establishment. They thought that Goldwater wasn't the best candidate, and he was supported by the far right, who they didn't like. So it's conservatives fighting on the far right. It's a story of the Republican Party then and today, factionalism and fighting and political power. Today, the conservatives in Hollywood, the Republicans, are trying to regroup. There's some well-known stars that are conservative. They've tried to organize. Many of the Hollywood conservatives today are libertarian, which is a good politics for Hollywood, because libertarians believe in individual freedom, but smaller government and less taxes too. So anyway, I would say that the real story of when Hollywood was right is in this period from the 1940s, late 1940s up to 1980. But conservatives and Republicans in Hollywood still have a history of how they were able to regroup and have influence on Southern California national politics. So there's a history to be told, and maybe a history for those few Republicans and conservatives in Hollywood to learn.